Hello everybody, welcome back to part 2 of a little international break 3-episode series of Will Your Team Be Higher or Lower on Christmas Day? We did the top 8 yesterday, so if you want to know how I think the top 8 is going to shape out and who's going to go up, who's going to go down, or maybe who's going to maintain, you can go and check out the video that was uploaded yesterday. We're going to go into the middle third of the table. We'll use the same processes as yesterday, a little bit of data and a little bit of hunch and whatever you want to throw in. Please feel free to have your say and use whatever rationale you like to reach your conclusion. Just remember, we're all predicting the future here, so you are as entitled to your view as I am to mine as anybody is to theirs. So we try and be respectful of everybody's views, if that's at all possible on the internet in 2021. Let's talk about Millwall then. Millwall are in 9th place. However, in the form table, they're 10th. And in the XG table, they're 12th. So those two particular metrics would suggest a possible downward movement for our friends from the Den. Opponent's position looks quite good for Millwall though, doesn't it? Much better than their opponent's average of 15th place, and that's the 21st most difficult run. So that bodes well for Millwall. Opponents' form, though, pretty much averages out very similar to Millwall's, who are 10th in the form table, and the average of their opponent is 10.8 from the form table. 7th most difficult in terms of form in the league. And opponent XG, again, very, very tight there. 12.7 the opponents. Millwall are 12th in that XG table. 12th most difficult, Millwall are 12th. So not a lot of margin for error or room. Eyes versus numbers with Millwall. So I'm going to say neither higher or lower. All seems to be edging out exactly where it is. I think maybe some teams will drop, maybe some teams will rise. I think Millwall are going to ride it all the way out, and I would not be surprised to see them in 9th position still come Christmas Day. In 10th are Blackpool currently, but in the form table, they are higher than that. So the form is better than their league position. They're 8th in the form table, 10th in the league table. However, in that XG table, Blackpool are only 19th. So that's a 9-place differential. Again, there are many reasons for a disparity. Don't get upset about it. It's just a probability stat. But I think with Blackpool, my hunch would be they're good finishers and they don't have many chances and they score the few chances that they do have, which is a good thing. Opponent's position bodes well for Blackpool. But what about this for a disparity? So Blackpool are playing opponents on average who are fairly low in the league, 14.3, but are in good form. On average, 10th or 10.2 in the form table, which is the third hardest run in terms of current form of any team facing in the next 6 games in the Championship. In terms of opponent XG, again, well, they're below it, as you would imagine. So the question we had to ask is, are Blackpool currently overachieving? I think most people would say it's been a spectacular run from the middle of League One. So under most circumstances, yes, they are. And I'm going to agree with many of those numbers, or, well, apart from that form table, which does have them 8th. I project Blackpool probably only be 1 or 2 places. Might well still be in the top half. But I think they might be lower by the time we get to Christmas. Let me know what you think in the comments. Nice and calmly if I predict your team to be lower. Don't take it personally. Luton, 11th currently. However, lots of metrics, most metrics, point Luton being higher in the table come Christmas. You can see there in the form table, they are 6th. And in the XG table, they're 4th. So big disparity there. 5 places and 7 places between where they are in the league and form and XG. Opponents' positions, okay, are quite tricky, it has to be said. Look at that. 7th most difficult in the league. Average position of opponent, 11.2. Position of Luton, 11. That all sounds quite tight to me, doesn't it? Same with the opponent's form. Slightly easier, or one place easier, but still around the same. Opponents XG down in 20th. So, with those two top metrics ringing in my ears, I'm going to suggest that Luton will be slightly higher. I'm not expecting a huge bomb up the table, but we'll project them to go up by Christmas Day from 11th. And let's talk about Swansea, our final top half side. And by God, look at their form. Third in the form table for the Swans. However, the opposite of Luton, their XG is not good. Is it that they let go a lot of big chances, or they have let go a lot of big chances early in the season? I don't know. Are they still paying for the sins of those early days of the Russ Martin era? So, look, they're 9 places better in the league than, in the form table than the league, but they're 5 places worse in the XG table than they are in the league. Whichever one means most to you will help you make your decision. Opponents' positions looks good. 17th most difficult run and only 12th on the form. Look at the opponents' XG though. They've got the plum one there. The 6 opponents they face, on average, the worst in the league out of anybody of any of the 6 opponents that are now going to be faced leading up to Christmas. Despite Swansea's XG not being good, I've just put their own XG evened out by opposition. I think it might be. So let's project Swansea to be going higher in the table by Christmas Day. And we'll move on to 13th place, Nottingham Forest, who have had a good run under Steve Cooper. It has to be said already. They've gone from... Were they ever bottom? I think they were, and then Derby had the points deduction, didn't they? But horrible start. However, since then, it's been much, much improved. You can see form table. Forest are currently 13th, but they're 4th in the form table. Their XG isn't quite there yet. They're 2 places off 15 against 13 where they are actually in the table. But again, the form table represents only Steve Cooper games and the XG represents the whole season. As does opponent's position. However, that works fairly okay for Forest. Average opponent position 14th. They're obviously in 13th. And that is the 19th most difficult run there. So not bad at all. Bottom 6 difficulty rating for that. In terms of opponent's form, 15th. Opponent's XG, 22nd. So that would intimate, if you're all in on your XG, which you shouldn't, don't be all in on any single stat. Look at everything. And you're allowed a hunch as well. Cooper continuation, I've written at the bottom. I think so. So I've got Forest to be somewhere in the top half as we get to Christmas Day. Let's talk about Middlesbrough. This is an interesting one because whatever we say now, based on past evidence, we now know there's a new manager. And that new manager will argue, well, what's those previous games got to do with me? I wasn't even at the club. And that wouldn't be an unreasonable argument, would it? Form table is good for Boro. 7 places higher in the form table than they are in the league table. And whatever you say about Warnock, and he's now gone, the XG's good as well. 6 places higher for Boro. Now, this is where it gets a little bit pithy because they've got a hard run, according to the numbers I've pulled up. Opponent position, 2nd trickiest in the league over the next 6 games. They'll face an average position of 8.7 for their opponents. And the hardest in terms of opponent form. The average position in the form table of Middlesbrough's next 6 opponents, 9.33, which by that average is the most difficult in the division. Opponents XG, 4th most difficult. So, as you can see, I've written down there, new boss versus tough run. But I do think you also need to accept Borough's relatively low position in the table at 14th. So, despite the tricky run, Chris Wilder coming in and a fairly low starting point, I'll have Boro going higher in the table. So there we go. For those people who say in the comments, oh, you're just going with the statistics. No, I've gone against a few of them on that one for Boro to go higher. Let's talk about Birmingham. And speaking of higher, Birmingham currently in 15th in the table, 5th in the form table, 6th in the XG table. And we know why that is. Bad finishing at Birmingham. The Birmingham fans have told me a million times they've had plenty of chances and not put them away this season. In terms of opponents, 11th most difficult based on current position, 20th most difficult. So nice and easy, you'd think, based on current form. XG, 15th. Is the bad run over? They had the difficult run, switch of system by Bowyer, a couple of players in, maybe Deeney a bit more settled, McGree. Chong's gone now, though, hasn't he? Did lose against Reading in the last game, but from a fairly low base position there of 15th, I think they will be higher on Christmas Day Blues. Let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, for this part, we will talk about Reading, who are currently in 16th place. However, and I think this is the only one when we look at the slides I've made and the research I've done, and I don't have a crack team of researchers. This is all me typing numbers into a spreadsheet. So my apologies if one is 0.1 out or I've done a typo somewhere. We're trying our best here. But Reading seem to have a clean sweep of minuses. Look, lower in the form table than they are in the league table. Much lower in the XG table. So that should say, there you go, there's your typo. That should say, well, it certainly shouldn't say 6th because they're not 6th in the... Don't know what that says. Forgive me on that one. Do you know what? I could look that up right now. Can't be bothered. There we go. Opponent's position... minus 2.8 and bang on in terms of Reading being 16th in the table and their average opponent being 16th over the next 6 games. Opponent's form, though, 3rd most difficult in the league against Reading being 19th in the form table. Opponent's XG, minus 9, 7th, and I've got my typo up there. So are they 16th? I don't know. I've made an error in there. But what I do know is that there's a lot of minuses pointing at Reading, although they did go on a good run early in the season. I don't normally like to mention injuries because I sit here on YouTube doing this job, and I hate to say it, but the two things I ignore are people moaning about referees and people moaning about injuries because I just hear it too much from too many places for it to make any difference to me. But Reading have had bad injuries, I do. I will admit on this one. I've written FFP there as well. Do we think there's a deduction coming, in which place that will very much likely pop them lower in the table? So I'll go all in on lower, and I'll apologise for a probable typo in my slide there. But hopefully the rest of my working out will lead you to forgive me and not shoot me down too strongly in the comments like people like to do whilst I sit at home and cry whilst I'm reading the YouTube comments. I don't, honestly. I don't. Not much anyway. Thank you everybody for watching. That is part 2 of our higher or lower by Christmas. Obviously, yesterday we did 1 to 8. This was 9 to 16 today. Go figure, we'll do 17 to 24 tomorrow as part of our international break content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As I always say with any type of predictions, for God's sakes, we're predicting the future. Nobody knows, so be respectful of what I've said, what anyone else might say in the comments, in the same way I will be respectful of your predictions too. Free speech reigns supreme, hopefully, in the comments. We can all be lovely to one another. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And part 3 will be out tomorrow. I'm going to record it right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.